You want the truth? America's cities are bleeding out, and 2025 is proving it beyond debate. Between 2020 and 2024, more than 40 of the 100 largest U.S. cities lost population, while suburbs and Sunbelt towns exploded with growth. The Census Bureau estimates that over 1.2 million people left the nation's biggest metros between 2020 and 2023, chasing cheaper housing, safer streets, and better schools. And when people leave, cities collapse. Tax bases shrink, schools lose funding, public services decay, and crime fills the vacuum. Baltimore, for example, dropped to just 567,000 residents in 2024, its lowest since World War II. San Francisco shed more than 32,000 people since 2020. Even Chicago, once America's industrial titan, has bled nearly 100,000 residents in the last decade. Meanwhile, states like Texas and Florida added more than 600,000 people in a single year. This is the Great American Migration, and the casualties are mounting. Today we're counting down the 10 fastest dying cities in the United States in 2025. Cities where the decline isn't hypothetical, it's happening right now. Number 10. Oakland, California. Oakland isn't just struggling, it's unraveling. Once the proud, scrappy neighbor of San Francisco, Oakland is now a case study in how fast a city can bleed out when crime, economics, and politics collide in the worst possible way. Back in the 1950s, Oakland had roughly 400,000 residents and a booming shipping and manufacturing base. Fast forward to 2025, and while the population still hovers around 420,000, the trend has flipped hard. More families are packing U-Hauls out of town than moving in. Why? Let's start with crime because it's impossible to ignore. Oakland's violent crime rate has been clocking in at nearly 2,300 per 100,000 residents, 3 times the national average. Car thefts? Off the charts. More than 15,000 cars were stolen in 2023 alone, about 40 every single day. That's not a typo. That's a carjacking epidemic. Housing makes the equation even nastier. Median home prices are still locked at $850,000, while the median income struggles to crack $80,000, meaning ordinary families are throwing away over half their income just to survive. Add in California's tax bite and skyrocketing utility costs, and it's economic suffocation. Business closures are accelerating too. Walgreens, Starbucks, even mom-and-pop diners can't keep up with shoplifting and security costs. Public schools are collapsing under declining enrollment. More than a dozen schools have shut down since 2012, and the district is already warning of more closures by 2026. When you combine unaffordable housing, a gutted education system, hollowed-out retail, and violent streets, you don't have a city. You have a slow-motion evacuation. Oakland in 2025 isn't just struggling, it's circling the drain. Number 9. Portland, Oregon. A decade ago, Portland was quirky, bike-friendly, and beloved by foodies. Today, in 2025, it's one of the most hollowed-out cities in America. This is a city that peaked at about 652,000 residents in 2020. But in the last 2 years alone, it's lost over 14,000 people, and that number doesn't even capture the wave of businesses that have abandoned the city. The numbers are brutal. Nearly 1,000 violent crimes per 100,000 residents, and property crime 5 times the national average. Walk downtown and you'll find entire blocks that feel like ghost towns. Nike, REI, and local restaurants have shut their doors permanently, unable to deal with rampant theft and declining foot traffic. Portland's homelessness crisis is impossible to ignore, with over 6,000 people living on the streets, tents covering sidewalks, and parks turned into sprawling encampments. Add to that a housing market that makes no sense. Median rents are pushing $2,800 a month, while the median household income limps along at $70,000. That means renters are spending nearly half their income just to keep a roof overhead, and that doesn't include groceries or Oregon's punishing utility rates. The city's political paralysis only deepens the rot. Leaders squabble over policy while businesses flee, schools lose funding, and basic services decline. Residents are watching their tax dollars vanish while potholes go unfilled and police response times climb. Portland once branded itself as weird, but in 2025, that charm has curdled. It's no longer a hub of creativity and progress. It's unsafe, unaffordable, and unlivable. People aren't just leaving, they're running. Number 8. Chicago, Illinois. Chicago was once called the city that works. In 2025, it's more like the city that doesn't. The numbers tell the story. Chicago peaked at 3.6 million people in 1950. Today, it's barely holding at 2.7 million, and the slide continues. In the last decade alone, nearly 100,000 residents fled, many heading to the suburbs or warmer states. Crime is the most obvious culprit. Chicago recorded over 700 homicides in 2023, lower than its 2021 peak, but still among the highest in America. Add in daily carjackings, burglaries, and assaults, and living in Chicago feels like a gamble. And here's the kicker. Even as crime drives people out, city finances are collapsing. Chicago is buried under $46 billion in unfunded pension liabilities, and everyone knows what that means. Rising property taxes, higher fees, and gutted services. The cost of living is crushing, with Chicagoans paying Los Angeles-level prices without the weather or scenery to soften the blow. Median household income is $65,000, but it vanishes quickly between rent, taxes, and skyrocketing grocery bills. Businesses are taking the hint. Boeing and Caterpillar already bailed from Illinois, and mid-sized companies are trickling out quietly to Indiana and Texas. Schools are another disaster zone. Chronic absenteeism sits at 40%, meaning entire generations are slipping through the cracks. Public transit is unreliable, roads are cratered, and the political gridlock in Springfield ensures nothing changes. Chicagoans are pragmatic people, but when the math says it's safer, cheaper, and smarter to leave, they don't hesitate. This isn't about preference anymore. It's survival. Number 7. New Orleans, Louisiana. New Orleans is a city you want to love but can't afford to live in. By 1960, the Crescent City peaked at 627,000 residents. In 2025, it's clinging to around 370,000, and every year, that number ticks lower. Why? Vulnerability. This is a city sitting below sea level in the path of hurricanes and barely propped up by levees and drainage systems that are decades past their prime. After Hurricane Katrina in 2005, billions in federal aid poured in, but 20 years later, the infrastructure is still crumbling. Insurance costs are strangling homeowners. Louisiana's crisis is so bad that multiple insurers pulled out, forcing residents to pay upwards of $6,000 a year just to keep their homes covered. Violent crime is just as crushing. With a murder rate of 70 per 100,000 residents, New Orleans consistently ranks among the deadliest cities in America. In 2022 alone, it had a homicide rate higher than some cartel-plagued regions of Mexico. Poverty makes everything worse. Median household income is under $45,000, and poverty rates hover above 20%. Schools are underfunded, enrollment is collapsing, and businesses can't justify staying. Locals who can leave head for Houston, Baton Rouge, or Atlanta, chasing jobs and stability that New Orleans can't offer. The heartbreaking part is the culture. Jazz, Mardi Gras, and Creole food are treasures. But culture doesn't pay insurance premiums. It doesn't fix broken roads. And it doesn't make the streets safe. New Orleans in 2025 is more fragile than ever, and its future looks like a slow drowning. Number 6. Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis rounds out this stretch of the list, and it's not pretty. The city peaked in 1970 with 650,000 residents. Today in 2025, it's just over 620,000, and the slide shows no signs of stopping. Within the next decade, experts say it'll dip below 600,000. The reason? Memphis has become the epicenter of violent crime in the United States. With nearly 2,300 violent crimes per 100,000 residents, it's officially the most dangerous large city in America. Carjackings, robberies, and shootings aren't occasional. They're daily. Families live in fear, and law enforcement is stretched to the breaking point. But crime isn't the only issue. Memphis's economy is one of the weakest in the country. The median household income sits at just $43,000, far below the national average. while inflation has driven up the price of everything from groceries to gas. Food costs in Tennessee spiked by 10% in 2023 alone, a gut punch for families already stretched thin. Schools are ranked among the worst in the state, with underfunded classrooms and crumbling facilities. Infrastructure is equally bleak. Pothole-riddled streets, failing public utilities, and little investment in revitalization. Even FedEx, the corporate giant that made Memphis a logistics hub, has been shifting operations elsewhere, cutting jobs and signaling that the city's role as a distribution powerhouse may be fading. Young people are fleeing for Nashville, Dallas, or Atlanta, leaving behind an aging population trapped in decline. Memphis isn't just losing residents, it's losing hope. In 2025, the city is in full-scale retreat. Number 5, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Philadelphia, the birthplace of American democracy, is also becoming one of the most evacuated cities in 2025. Once home to over 2.1 million residents back in 1950, today Philly is struggling to hold on to about 1.56 million, and that number is dropping like a stone. Let's break it down. Crime here isn't just high, it's relentless. In 2022, Philadelphia reported over 500 homicides, a murder rate higher than some war-torn Central American nations. Car theft is now part of daily life. 23,000 vehicles were reported stolen in 2023 alone, which works out to more than 60 cars disappearing every single day. Schools are in free fall. Nearly 70% of students in the district are considered economically disadvantaged, dropout rates hover near 18%, and infrastructure is failing so badly that some classrooms literally deal with collapsing ceilings. And then there's the tax burden. Philadelphia has one of the steepest city wage taxes in the country at 3.79%, stacked on top of Pennsylvania's state income tax. That's before you even touch the city's sales tax or crushing property taxes. Businesses can't justify staying put. Corporate headquarters are migrating to the suburbs, and workers are following. Median household income sits around $54,000, while average rent is cracking $1,800 a month, already out of reach for most residents. Add in pothole-ravaged streets, collapsing bridges, and a transit system ranked among the least reliable in the nation, and you get a city that feels like it's living off borrowed time. Philadelphia may still have cheesesteaks and history, but in 2025, it also has one of the fastest outbound migration rates in the country. Number 4, San Francisco, California. San Francisco was once the crown jewel of the American West, the home of the tech boom, the Golden Gate Bridge, and million-dollar dreams. But in 2025, it's one of the clearest examples of how quickly a city can collapse under its own weight. Let's look at the numbers. San Francisco's population peaked at nearly 890,000 in 2019. By 2023, it was down to around 810,000, and new projections suggest it could dip below 750,000 by 2030. What's driving the exodus? Cost of living, plain and simple. Median home prices are still hovering around $1.2 million, while median household income, though high at $119,000, can't keep pace with $5,000 monthly rents and crippling mortgage rates. Crime adds another layer. Car break-ins have reached legendary status. 20,000 were reported in 2022 alone, making smash and grab practically a San Francisco calling card. Open-air drug use has turned entire districts into what looks like a scene from a dystopian movie, while homelessness has exploded to over 8,000 within city limits. Businesses can't absorb the losses. Nordstrom, Whole Foods, Office Depot, and countless small shops have abandoned downtown, leaving Union Square hollow. Even the tech industry, the very lifeblood of San Francisco, is bailing. Giants like Oracle and Tesla have relocated, and those that remain push remote work, leaving glass towers half empty. The city is staring down a $780 million budget deficit for 2025, which means more taxes are coming, accelerating the middle-class flight. What you're seeing isn't just decline, it's implosion. San Francisco is in free fall, and in 2025, the only growth industry is moving trucks. Number 3, Birmingham, Alabama. Now let's talk Birmingham, Alabama, a city that never recovered from the collapse of the steel industry, and is now on life support in 2025. This was once the Pittsburgh of the South, peaking at 340,000 residents in 1960. Today, just 196,000, nearly half its population gone in 2 generations. Poverty here is crushing. Median household income is a pitiful $39,000, one of the lowest of any major U.S. city, and nearly a quarter of residents live below the poverty line. With economic despair comes crime, and Birmingham has it in spades. Violent crime rates hover around 1,600 incidents per 100,000 residents, placing it near the very top of America's most dangerous cities. Education is another casualty. Fewer than 20% of juniors test proficient in math, and schools are operating in facilities that should have been condemned decades ago. The job market offers little relief. The city leans heavily on low-wage healthcare and service jobs, while higher-paying industries like tech, finance, or advanced manufacturing are almost non-existent. Infrastructure? It's collapsing. Residents routinely face boil water notices thanks to ancient pipes, and roadways rank among the worst in the Southeast. Add in rising utility costs and an exodus of young talent to Atlanta, Nashville, and even Huntsville, and Birmingham looks like a city being drained of its future. What's left is a shrinking, aging population stuck in decline. Birmingham is no longer the industrial powerhouse it once was. It's a cautionary tale of what happens when a city never reinvents itself. Number 2. Cleveland, Ohio. Cleveland, Ohio. The city on Lake Erie that once boomed with steel, manufacturing, and working-class pride has become the textbook example of long-term decline. Let's start with the numbers, because they're staggering. Cleveland peaked in 1950 with 914,000 residents. In 2025, it's barely clinging to 370,000, a population collapse of nearly 60% in 70 years. That's one of the steepest declines of any major U.S. city in modern history. What's fueling the collapse? Crushing poverty and stagnation. Median household income sits at just $32,000, less than half the national average, and almost 1 in 3 residents live below the poverty line. The job market is bleak. Cleveland never successfully transitioned from heavy industry to new economic engines. Manufacturing collapsed, and aside from hospitals like the Cleveland Clinic, which requires degrees most locals can't afford, the city has little to offer in stable employment. Crime compounds the misery. Violent crime rates exceed 2,200 incidents per 100,000 residents, making it one of the most dangerous large cities in America. Schools are no refuge. Graduation rates hover around 74%, and standardized test scores sit at the bottom of the state. Infrastructure is a nightmare. Water pipes are older than most residents, streets are patched more than paved, and Cleveland Hopkins International Airport still feels like it's stuck in the 1980s. Throw in brutal winters, high property taxes, and a shrinking tax base, and you've got a city in freefall. Families aren't just moving to the suburbs, they're leaving Ohio altogether. Cleveland used to be called the Sixth City, a symbol of industrial might. In 2025, it feels more like a prophecy of urban decay, a warning of what happens when a city collapses and never gets back up. Number 1, Detroit, Michigan. And here we are, number 1, the undisputed heavyweight of American urban decline, Detroit, Michigan. No city tells the story of collapse more dramatically than this one. In 1950, Detroit was the proud Motor City, home to 1.85 million people, a booming auto industry, and the promise of a middle-class life. Fast forward to 2025, and Detroit is barely holding at 635,000 residents, with projections suggesting it could slide under 560,000 before 2030. That's not just decline. That's devastation. Poverty is rampant. Median household income hovers around $35,000, and over 30% of residents live below the poverty line. Crime is off the charts. With nearly 2,700 violent crimes per 100,000 residents, Detroit is one of the most dangerous big cities, not just in America, but in the entire industrialized world. The physical decay is jaw-dropping. More than 70,000 abandoned buildings litter the city, entire neighborhoods left to rot. Public services are collapsing under the weight of emptiness. Police response times stretch past an hour. EMS crews can't cover their calls, and kids are stuck in overcrowded, crumbling schools. The 2013 bankruptcy, still the largest municipal bankruptcy in U.S. history, left scars that never healed. Even downtown's so-called revival is a mirage. Sure, there are trendy bars, arenas, and casinos, but step a few blocks away and you're staring at urban wastelands. The auto industry still exists, but automation and outsourcing gutted the jobs that once sustained millions. Fed-up residents are leaving in droves, often heading south to states like Georgia or Texas. In 2025, Detroit is more than just a city in decline. It's the ultimate symbol of what happens when industry, governance, and community all collapse at once. The Motor City has become the moving city, powered by U-Hauls heading out of town. And there you have it. 10 American cities in 2025 where the lights are dimming, the tax base is shrinking, and the U-Haul trucks are rolling out faster than they're rolling in. The numbers don't lie. Cities like Detroit, Cleveland, and San Francisco are staring down decades of population collapse, poverty rates 10 to 20 points above the national average, and violent crime levels 2 or 3 times the U.S. norm. Meanwhile, states like Florida, Texas, and North Carolina keep racking up the growth, together adding nearly 700,000 residents in 2023 alone, proof that Americans are voting with their feet. What you're seeing isn't just migration. It's survival. When a city can't provide safety, schools, and opportunity, families leave, businesses fold, and the spiral only accelerates. The story is simple. Some cities are thriving, but these 10, they're dying in plain sight. The only question now, will your city be next?